responsabilidad, ¿oíste?
Lo prometemos.
Sí.
What is your personal history with the original movie?
I saw the original movie when it came out in 2002. I was in high school. It completely blew me away. And it really, it's been my favorite Disney animated film since I saw it back then. And it also really opened my eyes to sort of the potential to tell a really intimate, personal story through a specific lens with animation or filmmaking. It is such a unique and beautiful movie because it is sort of all based on Chris Sanders' drawing style and artistic style and the watercolor backgrounds. All those things made it really ahead of its time, really unique. And I think it also gave the characters a real approachable messiness that resonated with a lot of people. Because of its artistic style and the story it's telling, it felt rough around the edges in a way that was authentic and kind of strangely authentic for a Disney animated film, which was, you think of fairy tale kingdoms and princesses, and this is certainly not that. And so that's part of the reason I thought it would really make for a great live action film.
And I actually saw it in college for the first time, and I just remembered the first time Lilo says, "Leave me alone to die." I was like, what Disney movie am I in right now? And it just felt so bold. It felt so different. And to Dean's point, it felt ahead of its time. So, I think that was something that felt like it was so ripe to update and would be so resonant today.
And more example, Jonathan, tell me, what was the biggest challenge translating the old movie into this new format?
Yeah, I sort of had experience with this once before with Disney, doing the live action version of Aladdin, and you sort of have these expectations of this thing that everybody loves, and then what are the things that you as a fan would be mad about if they weren't in this version? And then you have to figure out all the other things that actually have to change in some ways, because there's things that work in animation that don't work as well in live action. And it's, for instance, Jumba and Pleakley are in human form for a lot of the movie. We felt like that was something that just made it feel more believable in a live action world if they're sort of trying to hide in plain sight and blend in. But it's really not one sort of overarching thesis as to how to do this. It really is so many micro decisions along the way as far as like what is best for the story. And I think when you start thinking about the story through the lens of human actors, there is a sort of emotion that you have that's just slightly different than the way you relate to animated characters. And so I think that was something we really wanted to mine with the story of these two sisters potentially being torn apart, and that actually led to new characters like Mrs. Kakoa and Tutu, the sort of little Ohana that was kind of being built around them. Some of those ideas came out of the mind of our Hawaiian screenwriter, who just sort of said this would actually be more authentic to the culture of Hawaii and the community, that there would be some outreach and there would be people trying to help out two sisters like this who lost their parents. So you just you talk to a lot of people, and ultimately you have to also find the right filmmaker. And I think in some ways that's the hardest challenge, because you want to tell this beautiful, intimate live action story, but then there's a huge animation component to it as well in these CG characters. And so when they got the honor to see Marcel the Shell for the first time, it sort of felt like this was the perfect director to bring this to life, who could both take an animated character like Stitch and get him right and deliver for the fans, while also telling this very sort of beautiful, naturalistic human story in live action.
Exactly, I wanted to get to that question. Dean, tell us, were you inspired to add elements of Marcel the Shell into this movie, since more or less both films sort of star unconventional families, so to say?
Yeah, totally. I love that you bring that up. I felt like it was a story that I knew how to tell, partly because of my experience on Marcel. And they're both, obviously on the surface, they're very different movies, but the central characters are both these really unusual protagonists who are sort of trying to find their place in this world that wasn't necessarily made for them, and is sometimes kind of, against them. And because of that, they're so charming and cute and adorable, these characters, but they also have this kind of deep well of emotion and sadness and potential loneliness that I think we can all relate to, and has always really resonated with me. So I jumped at the chance because I felt like, it's a perfect kind of story that I like to tell, and tonally I felt like I knew I could nail it. And then there's the technical side, which for sure, like, the experience of making a hybrid stop motion animated film squares pretty one-to-one with making a hybrid CG 3D animated film, at least in terms of how you go about shooting it and what the challenges are. So, I think that I benefited hugely from having made Marcel before this.
He actually had the best and simplest director pitch of all time when he first came in. He was like, the formula on Marcel was jokes plus tears. That's what I want to bring to this. And it was so simple. And if you can deliver on laughter and tears in a cinema with other people, like that's really the goal.